How can we make the world better? By making ourselves better. The Dr. Joe Show explores how you can make positive personal change by using his groundbreaking and highly effective I Am approach to understand who we are and why we do what we do. Your small changes can have big effects.
Join us now for the Dr. Joe Show with Mark Stiles of Stiles Law and your host, Dr. Joe Schrand.
And here we go with the Dr. Joe Show right here on 95.9 WATD, your South Shore everything.
Yeah.
Welcome back, Dr. Joe.
Thank you, Mark. And you too. And here we are yet again doing the Dr. Joe Show here at WATD. We've got a really interesting guest tonight.
Yeah.
I just want to
Excited.
I just want to give a warning to people. It's a very intense topic tonight. I'm not kidding. But it is a universal topic that we will be talking about. And everybody, I really think everybody needs to know how to talk about this. And as we'll be reading and talking with our guest in a moment or two, there is a remarkable phrase that our author has: what is mentionable is manageable. And we are going to be coming back to that. What is mentionable is manageable. If you can talk about it, you can manage it. But that really is part of what we're talking about tonight with our guest who has written the book, Giving Hope. Could you please introduce our guest for tonight?
I would love to, Dr. Joe. Our guest is a doctor. She's an author. She's a teacher. She's an angel. She's the clinical associate professor of psychiatry at Weill Cornell Medical Center and senior consulting analyst for grief at Columbia Psychoanalytic Center. She treats adults and children facing all life issues, specializes in grief, and is a frequent sought-out expert on dealing with loss in schools and organizations across the country. She presents at grand rounds about this topic in medical centers near and far. Dr. Lister, Elena Lister, is published regularly in media such as the New York Times, the Washington Post, writing or being interviewed about coping with loss. Her most recent book, co-authored with Michael Schwartzman, PhD, is called Giving Hope: Conversations with Children About Illness, Death, and Loss. Dr. Lister is also a co-author of another book, I Will Remember You, a guidebook through grief for teens. Dr. Lister's work is in this area arises out of her experience of the illness and then death of her 6-year-old daughter from leukemia 25 years ago. Since her daughter's death, she has devoted much of her professional life to helping people of all ages not feel alone facing illness and loss, as well as other life challenges. A paper about that experience published in the Journal of Pain and Symptom Management is frequently used in medical schools and residences nationwide to train physicians in how to talk with patients and families about dying. Dr. Lister also gives the talk on this topic that is part of the Kravitz Foundation retreat provided to the pediatric residents at our own medical center. She volunteers as a grief chief with children and with parents at Camp Aaron, a nonprofit sleepaway camp that is free for grieving children 6 to 17 years old. Please meet Elena Lister. Welcome to the Dr. Joe Show.
Welcome, Dr.
Thank
Lister.
you. Wow. Thank you very much. It's great to be here. I'm really glad to have the opportunity.
Yeah. And so are we. And just so people know, Dr. Lister and I met when we were at the American Academy of Child Psychiatry conference recently. And we just started talking. And when I heard about this book and this topic, I said, I would be honored if you come on the show. It's not an easy thing to talk about, but if we don't talk about it, I think we send a message that we're not meant to talk about it. Is that a fair way to to get started?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because, when I speak about this, adults come up to me and they will talk about a loss they had as a child that was never talked about. And they thought that one couldn't talk about this. And it impacted them for the rest of their lives. They had difficulty talking to friends, to partners, to their own children about a death. And I believe that if you cut off certain kinds of feelings, you cut off other ones also. So the way to greet the world with an open heart is to feel the pain and the pleasure, to feel the sorrow and the joy. And so it's only in facing being able to talk about death that we open ourselves up to some really good stuff too.
Yeah. And the opening of the book in the beginning, can you talk about that? I read it and I really got very teary, wondering about what that experience was. Can you share that with our audience,
Sure.
please?
Yeah, you have a beautiful heart. So my daughter was diagnosed with leukemia, my younger daughter, at age 4, and she died at age 6. And she went through 2 years of pretty intensive treatment, often in the hospital more than at home. In fact, she coined the term hospital instead of hospital so that she could describe it.
Wow.
And we found that people couldn't talk to us. And my older daughter was 7 when her sister was diagnosed, 9 when her sister died. And we also felt that her friends couldn't talk with her about it. And we didn't want her at 9 or 8.5 to have to explain to everybody that her younger sister was home dying. My younger daughter asked us if she was dying, and we promised that we would never lie. And so we said yes. And we lived the last 3 months of her life as a family, all aware that she was dying and talking about it. And my 5 3/4-year-old at that point was quite able to understand what death was and to talk with us about it, to talk about how she wanted to die and who she wanted there when she died. And in fact, we were able to have that happen, much to my great relief. But so what we did, and this is described in the beginning of the book, is because her older sister, who was in 3rd grade, was confronting kids all the time about, and having to have this happen at home, we decided to go to her class, my older daughter's class, and describe to them what was happening in their friend's home. And in the hope that they would be kinder to her, my older daughter, and that they wouldn't be scared to come visit us because people were terrified of us. We were like, everybody's worst nightmare. And nobody wanted to, people who were close backed off. Some people didn't, and those people to this day are the dearest people in the world to me, but many people did because it was too scary.
Yeah, well, it is a scary topic, and that is really part of why I'm so delighted that we're talking about it. And even though it may be a strange segue, we have sponsors who we are grateful do not have such scary topics to talk about. But what I would like to do is hear from them, but we were going to be right back with Dr. Elena Lister. Folks, don't go away. We need to talk about this tonight. Thanks. We'll be right back with the Dr. Joe Show. And we are back. I'm not sure where the Mark is. I know that he was having some difficulty with his computer, but I hope that he's back on. But I will bring us back in. Dr. Lister, we're talking about your book, Giving Hope, Conversations with Children About Illness, Death, and Loss. And when we were off air, we were talking about how you were prepared to talk about this topic with your children. So can we just pick up on that?
Yeah, sure. So my father was a psychiatrist, and his sister died, my aunt, when I was 6. She was young, early 40s. And he took me to the hospital to visit her. And when she died, he had me come to the funeral. I had an older sister. We both went, and my mom. And then at her burial, he took me to the cemetery and had me participate in the burial.
And you were 6 years old?
I was 6 years old.
Yeah.
And then in order to maximize the experience, he took me around the cemetery and read tombstones with me.
Huh.
How old was this person when they died? Oh, this person, it says wonderful, whatever. And at the time, I thought that was usual. I thought everybody did that with their kids. And only later, when confronted with my daughter's illness, did I realize that he had paved the way for me to be able to confront death and to talk about it. He talked about it, and I learned from him. And he had died. He died before my daughter died, but right before my daughter died. But I was grateful to him for that, because whether or not he planned it, he made it so that when the moment came, I was ready. And I found actually that my daughter, who is ill, if you give children space, they will tell you what's really on their mind. And she told us, my husband and myself, what was really on her mind. And when she was 4.5, she said, she called me up one night. She was crying in bed. Her older sister came and got me. And she said, I'm scared about dying. She's 4.5. She was sick already, had had chemo, had been in the hospital, had been in remission, then had relapsed. And I mean, a 4.5-year-old could ask me that. She was thinking about it. And she said, I don't want to be without you.
Mm-hmm.
And when I die, I will be without you. She knew what she was talking about. So I said I was never going to leave her alone, and that we would do everything we possibly could to help her to live as long as possible. And that's what we were expecting. She had a big sickness, but she was getting all the big, good medicines. And we thought she was going to get to grow up to be big and strong. And that was because it was true. But when it wasn't true, we didn't lie. When she said, am I dying? We said, yeah. Very painful. But because of that, we had the most excruciating and beautiful time for the last few months of her life, with all of us knowing. And it was not just morose. It was not just depressing. People would come over to our house and I'd be baking chocolate cookies, and my daughter, who was ill, would be watching Little Mermaid, and her older sister would be building Legos right by her. Like, we were living, and we wanted to live as much as we could until we couldn't. And she taught me, really. She also was another one of my teachers, because, yeah, go ahead.
Go on,
because she asked, she led the way, and I had to meet her where she was.
But what foundation was there so that she would even be able to say those things, do you think? Because I think it's got to come from the parents to create that environment that says it's okay to talk about these things.
Well, you're right. And that's why I brought up my dad.
Yeah.
Because he made it okay for me to talk about it. And when he was dying, he talked to me about his dying.
Right.
And I am straightforwardly, and with a lot of emotion, but straightforwardly. And we raised our kids to be able to talk about anything and everything.
And I know it's embedded in the book, but I'd like to sort of jump to, why do you think it's so difficult for people in general to talk about death and dying?
Yeah.
I'm sure other people have asked you that question, but
yeah. No, I've thought about it a lot, because if you don't understand why, you can't really help people do it.
Mm.
And I mean, the most obvious thing is they haven't been parented to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing, but that just steps it back a generation. I think our society is deeply embedded in believing in immortality. And I mean, if you walk into CVS, walk up and down any aisle, and filled with anti-aging creams, color your hair so that it's not gray, anything but look old, because when you look old, you're closer to death. And so I think our society is, the younger, the better. And because young is away from death, people are scared of death because they don't know what it is. They don't understand what's going to happen after. People who are religious and have a belief tend to have a less fear, but nobody wants to die until, well, I'm going to erase that, because some people do want to die, sadly. But most people believe that they want to live as long as they possibly can, and they think about their lives as extending into their 80s and 90s. They don't realize that people who are sick die.
Yeah. A couple of things come to mind. The first is about the, don't age thing. And when I was medical director over at McLean many years ago, my wife suggested I dye my hair. And I got to tell you, the kids that I was working with were outraged, and they gave me such a hard time about it. Dr. Strand, what's going on with you? But there's that part. But do you think, and again, this gets into some of our evolutionary biology, folks, we have this thing called the prefrontal cortex, and the prefrontal cortex, part of our job of that is the ability to anticipate the future and what will happen next, make a decision, what will happen next. Do you think that as we evolved that prefrontal cortical ability, we began to realize what would happen next, which is that we would not be here? And then we created all these defenses to basically say that's what immortality is. That's what religion is. And I'm not putting it down, folks, not at all. But do you think that there's something about just our evolution that makes it so difficult to manage this concept that we're not going to be here forever?
Yeah. Well, I mean, how do you imagine your own dissolution? I mean, I talk about death all the time, and it's very hard to imagine. And because none of us know for sure what happens after one dies, it leaves a blank that maybe we don't really die. Maybe, we're in a place, heaven, we have other lives. I mean, many different cultures and religions have lots of different beliefs. So I think the idea that we could predict the future, but what is the future if you don't exist? Right. I mean, you can't put your hands around it. And also we want to be carried forward. When my daughter was actually dying, about a week before she died, she said to me, "Mommy, I'm too tired. I'm too tired. Why must I keep fighting to stay alive?" And I said, "You don't have to keep fighting to stay alive. If you feel that you're ready, I will miss you and love you for always, and we will follow your cue." And she said, "But where will I be? And will I be able to talk to you?" And I said, "Yeah, we'll be able to talk," because she believed in heaven. So I was going with her belief. Yes, we will be able to talk, but more with our hearts than our voices. And I said, she said, "Will you die with me?" And then she said, No, I don't want you to die with me. I want you to die after me, so you're with me when I die. And I said, "Well, a part of you will die. Part of you will stay alive with me, and a part of me will die with you." Mm-hmm. And that has been borne out to be true. But if you had asked me again 2 years before that, would I be able to have that conversation with my daughter? I would say, no way. So for people who feel it's too daunting, that it's too painful, I can say it isn't. It's quite beautiful. And the intimacy, the connection is just so exquisitely beautiful that I am deeply grateful for those conversations with her. It's how I carry her forward, one of the many ways.
And it sounds like you were meeting her where she was as well. Isn't that part of it? To meet the kids where they are with their understanding instead of imposing something on them?
Yes, that's right. And my husband and I had decided we were not going to leave her emotionally alone. with things that she was facing. So that if we aren't able to talk to her about it, then how is she's going to be alone with it? 'Cause she's thinking about it. And we didn't want that, nor from her older sister either. There's a beautiful book called Armfuls of Time by Barbara Sorks, and talks about dying children. And they say, and this is true, they say to hospital staff, not to the doctors, I know I'm dying, but mommy and daddy can't talk about it. So I'm not telling them, it would worry them too much. And I thought, I don't want that to be my daughter, who's protecting me from something that she's facing. And I think if we can talk with our children about dying or about a loss, the loss of a parent, a loss of a grandparent, loss of a pet, in moving, any kinds of changes, then they feel accompanied.
Yeah, then they're not alone.
They're not
And,
alone.
and we are very grateful that our sponsors also make us feel not alone. And so with that in mind, we'll take a listen to them, but we're going to be back with this topic and Dr. Lister. We'll be right back with the Dr. Joe Show.
And we are back with the Dr. Joe Show with an amazing guest, Dr. Elena Lister, an author of Giving Hope: Conversations with Children about Illness, Death, and Loss. And it is a heavy one, but we need to remember, if we mention it, we can manage it, right?
It's such a great phrase.
It is amazing. I've been thinking a lot about it since I first heard it here on this.
Yeah.
If you can mention it, you can manage it. And that's so true about so many things.
You know,
it is true.
A corollary of that is from my mother-in-law, who was 98 at the time when she said this, and she said, pain shared is pain halved. And I think she is the first to say it, but that is similar. The things that you don't carry alone are less painful.
Yes.
No matter how bad they are.
That's true, because we are a social animal, and to be able to share that, we were off air. We were talking a little bit about something that's happened to you over the last year. Can you share that with our audience?
Sure. So my husband of 42, we were together 42 years, died of cancer. A very rapid, from diagnosis to death, 7 months. And during that time, my daughter and son-in-law and their son, my fabulous grandson, and my son and his girlfriend came up to the house where we were all the time and spent a lot. So day in and day out with us, nights, days. And so at the time, my grandson was 2.5. And in the last 2 weeks of my husband's life, he was on hospice. He died in our home, just as he wished. And he was mostly unresponsive the last week of his life. And he was right in the middle of things, just where he wanted to be. And my grandson would come over and he would say to him, Grandpa, are you sleeping? And of course, Grandpa didn't say anything. And we would say, no, Grandpa isn't sleeping. He's really, really, really sick, and he may not get better. And he would say, oh, and he would put his hand on Grandpa and say, I love you, Grandpa. And then go play and, go whatever, listen to Daniel Tiger or something. And when he died, and if you asked him now, Grandpa died. He's not here anymore. I can't play with him and I can't talk to him, and he won't be coming back. That was 2.5. I mean, wow. I give that as an example, one, because it was my husband's dealing with it openly with all of us that allowed for that and for the closeness we had in the last months of his life. And two, my grandson was in that soup and picked up on everything, and we didn't shove it at him. He just got it. And he still talks about Grandpa. And I think that closeness is what helps him. He has more of Grandpa moving forward because of that closeness. And he was not sleeping. He wasn't showing behavior of distress. This is the giving hope part. Kids can talk about this stuff without being devastated. When we went to my daughter's school, we wrote a letter to all the parents before we went. We had the school's permission, obviously, and we went with a doctor who was palliative care doctor who was taking care of my daughter who was ill. And we told them, we were parents, that we were going to do this. And we said, if you have any questions or concerns, contact us, contact the school psychologist, and so on. And to a child, none of them came home after that conversation about their classmate's sister dying and didn't sleep or began to wet the bed again or do any of the other things that kids do, cling, not want to go to school. They were all okay. And they wanted to talk so much. I mean, they were raising their hand. My grandpa died, and want to say about it. And I was hurt, and they want to talk about their own hurts and things like that. I mean, I've never seen it be harmful. In fact, if anything, it strengthens things. And kids who talk about this kind of stuff will talk with their parents about anything, about sex, about drugs when they're older, because you lay the groundwork that there's nothing that can't be talked about. And I may not like everything you have to say, but I want to hear it.
But it's such an important message to parents, to everyone. One of the things that we say is, secrets aren't secrets because of what we've done. Secrets are secrets because we worry. How will someone judge us if they know they're our secret? How will we hurt them if they know our secret? And I think what we're learning is, if there's trust and that respect and value, and there's that trust, you can talk about anything.
Yeah. And kids often know, even if you don't talk to them. So if all you're doing really is leaving them alone with it. If my child was having issues, in high school about something, I would much rather know they can come to me than think that they're going to be, So and also the closeness is just so beautiful. I know it sounds corny. It really does. But these are the things in life that matter. I had a mentor when I was in medical school. I was doing a research on autism and kids. Mm-hmm. And he was the chairman of the department. And he said to me, he sat me down over lunch one day and he said, I'm nearing retirement. And I want to help you understand something because you're at the beginning of your career. And that is that here I am facing the end of my time as a professional and probably near the end of my life at some point down the line, not facing it directly. And I would like you to understand that on my tombstone, I don't want it to be said he published 12 books and 7,000 papers. I want it to be said he was a loving dad and a wonderful partner and a great grandpa and all of those things. And that if anything he regretted, it was that his connections were not strong enough, that he had not been emotionally present with his kids. And that obviously has never left me.
I can so relate to that. When I was also just in my first job and was going to leave it. It was at McLean. I was going to leave the job. And my mentor said, why are you doing it? I said, because I'm taking care of all these other people's kids, but my kids are growing up and I got to be with them. And then he paused. He said, I wish I had done that.
Oh, wow.
And I want parents to hear this. It's okay to talk with your kids. Right. What I say to parents is, don't let anybody ever tell you that you are not the expert in your kid. You're the expert. People like us, we're just the professionals. But the most important person is a kid.
That's right.
But so I think it's really important for people to know you don't need to be a child psychiatrist to do this.
Right. That's right. That's right? Exactly right.
Just be a parent. You don't have to be a trained child psychiatrist to know how to talk with your kids.
That's right. You don't have to be a trained anything.
Right.
All you really have to do is love them.
Yeah.
And yeah, that is really true. I have training, but in those moments, the things that mattered were my dad and how he was with me, and my husband and his ability to be with, all of us in that together. My husband was similarly felt we need to meet her where she is.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not the expertise. And I really just want to emphasize, I think kids who are raised this way become out more resilient, more compassionate, kinder, and more connected to the other people in their lives. Because that's how they've been raised. So not everybody has the luxury to take time off to be with their kids. Some people are working 2 jobs or 3 jobs.
Right.
But when you can be with your kids, to be in that open-hearted way, because that's what matters most.
So with the book, how do you have these conversations about illness, death, and loss? I mean, do we wait for the kid to say something, or is that the mistake? That if we wait for the kid to say something, they may think that they're not meant to because we're not saying something.
Great question. And it's tricky because it's a little bit of both. I don't know how many children's animated films you've watched recently, but I've watched a few, and they all have death in them. Almost all of them in some form. So in fact, the topic is right there. Or we give an example in the book of a child who's walking in the woods and sees, a dead frog. That's a moment right there. It's not artificial. The child is saying, what's with this frog? And so I think the opportunities present themselves naturally if you are aware and thinking and looking for them. And if not, or someone in their community dies, and all you have to do is say to your child, do you have any questions about that? About dying, about death? Because we can talk about that if you want. And if you don't want to now, we can at whatever time you do feel like you want to. I just think it's there anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, and really being able to take that opportunity, and I appreciate that, and again, not being glib, but we have the opportunity to hear from our sponsors. They're not necessarily talking about death, but it's certainly an opportunity to hear from them. So why don't we take a break? We'll be right back with the Dr. Joe Show. Mark Stiles and Elena Lister, our author. We'll be right back.
All right. We'll take it from here, Larry. Thank you. We are back with the Dr. Joe Show on 95.9 WATD with professor and author Elena Lister with their new book, Giving Hope, Conversations with Children About Illness, Death, and Loss.
So how can they find the book, Elena?
Any place. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, any place at all. All the places you usually buy books. And
That's
there's
great.
an audio book also.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh, great.
And is there a website? Do you have a website?
Well, it was published by Random House.
Okay.
So there's Penguin Random House has a website, and you can get it there too.
Great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark, what's this conversation like for you to listen to, be part of?
It's heavy, grief. It's, some of the most memorable episodes of the Dr. Joe Show revolved around grief. Grief is so very complicated, and I love how Dr. Lister is explaining to the listener, and to me being the listener, have the conversation like most things, open, vulnerable, share, more hands, lighter the lift, the openness of it. People are thinking about it. It's like that suicide conversation we had a few years ago where, our guest was talking about, don't be afraid to talk about it. It's not, you're not putting things in their mind
that aren't already there, have those open conversations and open up that trust compartment. Yeah. But this is, grief is heavy and, people deal with it very differently. And I think, what our friend here, Dr. Lister, as I mentioned, the angel, is showing us a really healthy way to deal with death and dying.
Yeah.
And, I hope the message is spread because, it doesn't need to be secret and quiet and, lonely and alone,
Yeah, we did have an author, we wrote Getting Grief Right, and his premise was we grieve in proportion to how much we love.
Yeah.
And that was really, really
Yeah.
So let's get to the two truths of the I am. So the I am is the idea we're all doing the best we can, but influence and responding to 4 domains. Our home domain, we've been talking a lot about that today. The social domain, which is everything else. And we've been talking about that as well, going into the schools and, working with other families. Those 2 domains are outside. And then the 2 internal domains, the biological domain of your brain and body. Hungry, tired? Are you sad? Are you grieving? And then what I call the I see domain. How do I see myself? How do I think other people see me? Human beings are very interested in what other people think or feel. Call that empathy. But what we really want to know is, what are you thinking about me? Do you see me as valuable? These 4 domains interact. Because they interact, a small change in any of the domains has a ripple effect to the others. You don't need to change everything. Small changes can have big effects. So that's the first question. Dr. Lister, given our topic that we're talking about tonight, what small change can you recommend to our listeners?
First of all, it's a very challenging question. But the first thought that came to me, I decided to go with, which is a concept called Take 5, which is that you find time during your day to set aside 5, and it doesn't even really have to be 5 minutes, in which you, there's a poet, Rumi, it's make regular visits to yourself. When you actually check in with yourself and say, how am I doing? How am I feeling? Where am I? And who am I being in the world right now? It's very grounding. And if you're grounded, you can relate to other people much more honestly, directly, and not only about yourself, but about them. So it's really just a few minutes. And any time during a day or several times during the day, but just so that when we lose sight of what we think and feel, I think we relate less well to people.
Yeah. So the small change is take a little bit of time for yourself.
Take 5. Yeah. Yeah. Take 5 to just check in with yourself.
Why do you think that's so hard for people to do?
We lead very busy lives. And I meditate. So that is a time. It's not a time to really check in with yourself. That wouldn't be the point, but it is a time when things slow down. And I just think it's really hard in our lives to make time for that. We have lots of responsibilities. We have lots of worries and so on. That's one reason why. And also sometimes we don't want to know what we really think and feel.
That is true.
Yeah.
And there's that phrase in our field, right? Denial is not just a river in Egypt.
Right. Exactly. I've used that one. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so important to be able to take time for yourself. It's not a selfish thing, folks.
No.
It's actually rejuvenating, so you can be who you want to be. That small change can have a big effect. So take that time. Great advice. Second truth of the I am, everyone's got one. Everyone is interested through their I see domain, what you think or feel about them. And that has an effect on the biological domain because it feels different when you feel respected or disrespected. And because we are part of someone's home or social domain, the second truth of the I am, you control no one, but you influence everyone. And you get to choose the kind of influence you want to be. So Dr. Elena Lister, author of Giving Hope, Conversations with Children about Illness, Death, and Loss, professor, parent, loved one, what kind of influence do you want to be?
This one was easy for me. Really, I mean, like in an immediate, and that is, I want to be an influence for kindness. I believe it never hurts to be kind. And that sometimes you can ask yourself the question, what would kindness do now? If you're in a situation. So I want to be an influence for kindness and relatedly open-heartedness. Those two things.
And how does that then relate? Because I think some people shy away from talking about this topic, shy away from talking about death, because I know it disturbs them, but do you think some people think it would be cruel to burden others with their own grief, their own anguish? Is that fair to say?
I mean, I think there are people who can't handle, and I found that in my experience, both my husband's death and my daughter's death and my parents' death and all of those, that there are people who can't. And I think the people who can't. And that's where they are right now. But there are people who can. Many people want to know because they feel helpless. And if you share what you're feeling, they feel included. They feel like, oh, and then maybe they know what to do. I always tell people you don't have to fix anything. Really, just being with somebody without asking anything of them is really healing. And it's not easy. So I don't think it's cruel to share painful feelings. I don't think you do it with everybody, and I don't think you do it all the time. But I think it's a thing to do, and sometimes it helps the other person.
There's that phrase, bearing witness, right?
Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. Yes, that's right.
And yet the phrase itself, the more I think about it, that idea that we have to bear it, bearing witness, as if it's so painful for us to witness somebody else's anguish that we would rather just put up the wall and say no. But when we do that, folks, the wall that you put up isolates not just you, but the person who needs your help. You control no one. You influence everyone. You get to choose. Do you want to be that person of kindness? How do we teach that to our kids, Elena?
Oh, well, I think you should ask my kids whether I've taught it to them. I don't know. But I mean, I think you be kind. It's not telling them so much as being that way. And it's organic, They just absorb that kindness is the way you treat the world. My husband was kind and open-hearted. And they see that, and they see good come from it. And so they just absorb it and kind of become like that. I think my kids are incredibly kind, but they're my kids, and I'm I'm not impartial, that's for sure. But so, and you can also teach it. I mean, you can talk about it. I mean, like anything else and everything else, you can talk about it, but it's not something as a lesson. Let's sit down and learn. It's more, how they're treating their friends.
Yeah.
Is that a kind thing to do?
Yeah.
And, also, how would you want to be treated?
Right.
So I think the best thing you can do is model it.
Yeah. It's powerful, folks. We have an opportunity to really influence the world. You get to choose. Do you want to be that kind person? Do you want to make that small change for someone? I mean, think about it. 90% of the time, when you thank someone for opening that door, for doing something, what do they say in return? You're welcome. Which means you're not part of my group. You've increased your group with that kindness. Dr. Lister, thank you so much for being here tonight. Folks, Giving Hope, Conversations with Children about Illness, Death, and Loss. Pick it up. We all need to know it. It's going to happen sometime.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.